Do you think that's a bit of an opaque, approach, given that it would afford some sort of grace for those that now function as either a utility or hoping to be that have already had massive raises, and to the detriment of those who are desperately trying, that may have good tech and just simply can't get the injections of cash that the ICO bubble afforded?
Yeah, so I'd say that there are a few tokens that are clear utility tokens. Whether or not the utility model will last in many of these ICOs, or if they really do provide real utility, that's up in the air. But the few ICOs that I have supported or been eager to support, I know, for example, I was an advisor for Unibright, and then along with that as well, early substratum supporter in this case, both of those utility tokens. And I liked it because they actually had a value proposition in this case as utility token, whereas I saw a lot of utility tokens in kind of failed models. There wasn't enough demand, I thought, for that token.
And Nick, you raised a really good point there, and we're going to talk more about projects of interest. I do want to find out more about your thinking. And I do agree with you entirely about Unibright, for example, because clearly they have a model that's an enterprise focused, but they also want to make sure that that utility has value. But here's the thing I was wondering, Nick, and I was hoping you might be able to explain to the listeners, is how do we ensure there's a correlation between that token, just whether, if in fact it does have utility and the company produce revenue, how do we ensure that has correlations with the business growth, with the revenue and the success of the business that builds out?
Yeah. So you need to have the utility token directly tied, the value of that token directly tied as much as you can with actual real adoption of your technology. That is, again, what you're raising for in this case. The token is a metric of output of a given system. So, for example,
so Nick, is that a currency in that context though? Is it a utility currency then?
Well, yeah, I would say. I mean, we can swap between tokens and currency in this case as terms. But I would say more than anything, yes, you could say it's a token or a currency. That basically it's an IOU basically to a distributed system where you can get access to a certain amount of computational power. For example, storage space in the case of things like Coin, for example. These tokens or cryptocurrencies, they have some type of value of output from these distributed or decentralized systems. And if you're distributed decentralized system, that's a tongue twister. If you have that, but you don't have any real utility on top of it, sadly, 99% of blockchain projects
are going to die.
Your utility token doesn't speak anything.
At what point can we prove for sure, or can they, that particular token that people in the retail market have invested in can convert into a correlation of value? And that's important to us because it's one thing to have revenue and to build out a business and Unibright be successful, but how can that retail investor capitalize on that particular token because of the success or the prospective success of that company?
Yeah. Well, I liked Unibright's model as an example. I don't mean to show the project too much, but I think it's a good model in the sense of a utility token where, as I defined earlier, in the sense of utility token being an output from the distributed system or the technology that you're building. In Unibright, the big thing that they're building, for those who don't know about Unibright specifically, Unibright's basically a software platform where you can deploy smart contracts on a variety of blockchains. You don't need to have any coding experience. They have a great block explorer where you can actually watch the smart contract in action.
Yeah,
lots of really cool technology.
It's a one-stop shop, basically.
It's a one-stop shop. That's a great way of putting it. And the cool thing I liked about it is it knocks down a lot of barriers to smart contract adoption, which is what so many corporations want to utilize. They want to utilize Ethereum or Neo and all these smart contract platforms to do real-world applications. But the thing is that on Unibright, the major thing you're doing is deploying smart contracts. Once you've designed it, you deploy a smart contract on whatever protocol they have available that you've chosen. The thing is, though, that in order to deploy that contract onto that exchange, to do all that automated process, to develop it, you have to use the Unibright token to actually deploy that contract. Yes. So the more adoption of the platform in this case, the more you're able to have demand for the token. So they just got, I might be pronouncing the name wrong, Deutsche Bahn, which is the huge train company that we actually just saw as a corporate partner for Unibright. Mm-hmm. If that company consistently on a weekly basis needs to deploy 50,000 smart contracts, they're continuously setting a demand for that token. So it's almost like a voucher system in a sense.
Yeah, it is. It's exactly what it is. It's a redeemable voucher system that technically it's an internal economy. That's how I see it, Nick. But the thing is, I just wanted to jump in because I totally agree. I mean, I'm a big fan of something like CHX. I speak about it a lot. I tweet about it a lot. I like the quant network for what they're doing. And I'm not an ambassador or, it's not a shill. I did invest in both of them on the secondary market. But the thing is that even in that context, though, when we're talking about the requisites of trade, that these enterprises have to go and engage with this token. It's compulsory for that enterprise, for that business to transact between A to B. But Nick, the question I have now is, how is that going to happen when we have tens of thousands of different microeconomies with their own tokenized systems? Is that going to be practical? Is that going to be something that's viable long term? Is it going to frustrate enterprise?
I don't think it's going to be very commonplace. That's why I don't believe there'll be too many utility platforms. It might be something that's quite short-lived, but I think for the case of something that's similar to the Unibright model we discussed, what's really nice is you can actually do it B2B. So if Unibright, for example, knows how to deal with the token in this case, versus this company that they're partnering with, and they're like, we don't want to deal with the token. We just simply want to execute X amount of smart contracts at a fixed price. They can go through and negotiate that deal. So that's what we want to see, is that companies will offer, hey, look, don't worry, you just like the technology, we can streamline that. We'll basically conduct everything for you.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing also. Many of them can just conduct the transaction in fiat, which is
precisely.
quite seamless. It's an interesting model. Certainly they're the ones that I'm looking more at as well, because fundamentally, for everything in the utility domain to work, there must be that correlation. That must be that proof. Otherwise, WTF, pretty much. What the hell are we investing in as utilities or as prospective utilities if in fact there is no correlation with the growth and success of the company? It then just becomes a nothing, a nothing token. And as you said, Nick, as well, for the most part, some of these technologies just may not evolve into the utility and real world domain and be actualized through mass adoption.